11 years ago today, I voted to leave the European Union. So who better to join me on my first show than Nigel Farage?
Well, thank you, Lee. Pleased to be here.
Cheers, Nigel. Now then, Nigel, the roles are reversed. It's normally you sat here and me sat there. But I want to go a little bit further back to your journey, because I know you're a true patriot. Let's go back to the early 80s when you were at school. We have a problem these days with school teachers indoctrinating children. We know that at universities, at colleges, the left-wing elite, if you like. But you got into a spot of bother.
Yeah, when I went to that school, and I was very lucky to go to a great school, a private school, been around 400 years, but 50% of my year were scholarship boys. 50% came from families without much money, so it was a very good social mix. Yeah. The teachers, when I started, the teachers had flown Spitfires, commanded tanks. Yeah. You know, the PE master was an ex-regimental sergeant major. Yeah. I got on brilliantly with them. You know, they were tough, they were harsh, but I got on brilliantly with them. By the time I left, the class of 68 had pretty much taken over the English department and were all way left. Yeah. And so I started to see the kind of liberal intolerance that we're getting now. Yeah. Rather than speak freely, say what you think, it was kind of a bit of a, well, you can't say that, can you? So, yes, and then once I realised that what I was saying was upsetting people, I just kept on saying it and kept on going. But I do think the important thing is always question what you're told. Never take everything you're told at face value. Think everything.
There was more freedom of speech at school back when you was at school or today?
So when kids were in playgrounds and they'd say bad things about each other, if somebody objected, you'd say, it's a free country. Yeah. I can say what I like. Kids now, if they have a dispute in the playground, say, I know my rights. It's a very big fundamental change.
But we have seen over the past few days, Nigel, some kids are actually fighting back. They're recording some of the conversations through some of the woke nonsense that's being spouted, and they are fighting back.
I get a lot of emails from teenagers saying, Nigel, I don't know what to do. Do I speak out? Don't I speak out? And I sort of say to all of them, well, I felt like that a little bit, you know, all those years ago. I mean, that 13-year-old girl at Rye College in East Sussex, who said she didn't really think it was very sensible for her friend to identify as a cat, and then had a bit of a Barney with the teacher. Yeah. She showed great spirit. But look, the important thing in life, and it doesn't matter whether we're left or right, whatever it is, we need to respect the fact that other people have different opinions, and to teach young people critical thinking, to teach them to listen to both sides of an argument, make their own mind up, and sadly, that's not happening enough.
Did you manage to get your prefect badge?
I did. Amazing.
And what was your biggest achievement as a prefect at school?
Keeping out of trouble myself, I think. Yeah, no, I mean, look, I had a great time at school. Yes, I was controversial. Yes, I was argumentative. But I kind of think young people ought to be.
I think it's interesting you say that, Nigel, because when I was at school, especially junior school, I'm a little bit younger than you, but our teachers had come from the Second World War. We had one chap, Mr. Swain, God rest his soul, he'd been a prisoner of war. He'd actually been shot. He showed me his bullet wound. And we had Mr. Ralston. He was in the Royal Navy, Sailor Bill, we used to call him. Then when we went up to the senior school, our head teacher had been in the Navy as well. Yeah. So these were people from a different era, got different values, and I respected these people. Yeah, and I see one of my old school teachers now still, and I still call him sir after 40-odd years. But let's move forward a little bit. Yeah. You know, I want to skip a few years. You end up as an MEP. In Parliament?
I mean, even though at school I was fascinated by current affairs, and we had a succession of brilliant speakers that came to the school, you know, Ken Livingstone, Keith Joseph, Enoch Powell, I mean, from right across the spectrum. So I was very interested in current affairs. But I'd never intended to be in politics at all. I'd never even intended to stand for local council. But it was really almost exactly 30 years ago. We joined the exchange rate mechanism. Interest rates went through the roof. Funny this, isn't it? People struggled with mortgages, businesses went bust, and we were doing that to align ourselves with what became the euro currency. I was appalled by that. I thought the way the Tory party got rid of Thatcher was pretty gutless. And of course the Maastricht Treaty signing us up to an ever closer union. So that was when I suddenly decided I want to be political. And I saw people in the Labour Party, there were more in those days than now, people in the Conservative Party who had exactly the same fears about where we were going as I was. But I didn't think any of them really had the balls to actually do anything about it. So I campaigned from 93 very hard, and in 99, under proportional representation for the European elections, got elected to the European Parliament.
It would be fair to say, though, Nigel, looking back, 'cause I've followed your career, even when I was in the Labour Party, and some of the scenes, if you like, we see in the European Parliament with you holding the Commission to account.
Yeah.
Some very light-hearted, funny speeches, but with a great point to them as well. And I think we're going to look at a clip in a moment. I think it's the damp rag speech, and the "you're not laughing now."
You have the charisma of a damp rag and the appearance of a low-grade bank clerk. And the question that I want to ask, that we're all going to ask is, who are you? I'd never heard of you. Nobody in Europe had ever heard of you. I would like to ask you, President, who voted for you? You know, when I came here 17 years ago, and I said that I wanted to lead a campaign to get Britain to leave the European Union, you all laughed at me. Well, I have to say, you're not laughing now, are you?
So that's very good stuff, Nigel. It always tickles me to see that. Great entertainment. But I'm going to bring in somebody now in the corner. We have a token lefty in the corner. It's Simon Danchuk. After all these years, Simon, you've finally got your name up in chalk. That's a great accolade, that is. That's great stuff.
Thank you.
So you actually voted to remain.
Yeah, that's right. I voted Remain in the referendum, but accepted the result of the referendum. So once we'd voted to come out, then I supported that. Though I have to say, I think it's not been a great success, and it's the Conservative Party who failed to make it a success. I mean, the economy is not doing well from Brexit. I'd be interested to hear what Nigel thinks about that.
OK, you can stop your political broadcast. How would you have done things differently, Simon?
Well, I think we could have done more in terms of the Commonwealth. It accounts for about a third of the population of the world. I think we could have built stronger relationships through the Commonwealth and used that to our advantage economically. I think the economy's been mismanaged, it's fair to say. I mean, just keep changing chancellors and all the rest of it hasn't been good for the country. So we haven't got the Brexit positiveness that we could have got from...
You sound like an ally to Nigel Farage now. You sound like a Brexiteer.
Well, once the people have made their decision, I do support that. I mean, you can't decide any other way. I mean, there are people in the Labour Party who would still have us go back in, and that would be my fear under Keir Starmer.
So the arguments you're making now about having stronger links with the Commonwealth, that makes complete sense. Were they the sort of arguments that you were arguing against during the referendum?
No, I was just about to Remainer. I was conscious that the EU wasn't working perfectly by any stretch of the imagination, but I concluded that we were just about better off being in there than being outside it, whether that were the right decision or not. But the public have made their decision, and Brexit is the result of that, and that's what we should have.
So if there's a referendum tomorrow, which way would you vote?
Oh no, because the public have decided.
No, which way, if there was, which way would you vote?
I'd vote to stay out now. No doubt about that.
Okay. Nigel, he's a great man, is Simon.
I've got great respect for that.
Yeah.
I mean, look, you know, here's the point. The country made a decision. Once you've made that decision, you accept it as a big democratic mandate, you go with it and try and take full advantage of it. And obviously, in the campaign, Simon was weighing up the pros and cons. The big disappointment is the Conservative Party never believed in it. Some people did, but the government never believed in it, and effectively, they've sabotaged Brexit. They've not delivered. There were two things that were clearly achievable and desirable. One was proper border controls. As we speak, there are dinghies crossing the English Channel. As we speak, net migration is now 3 times what it was before Brexit. And the second is for the millions, 5.5 million men and women out there running their own little businesses. They genuinely expected regulations to go, and none of it's happened. And there is this feeling that it's been sabotaged, and it now makes it easy for Keir Starmer's government to sign us back up.
So let me ask you one final thing, Nigel, before we draw to a close. You've been in politics now for over 30 years. You were Mr. Brexit. You've probably been the biggest single influence on politics as a person that's not within Parliament over the past 30 years. You certainly are responsible for me being here, doing this job for GB News and being a Member of Parliament. Would you do it all again?
It came at a price, and I don't mind the price that I had to pay. I regret the price that those close to me had to pay in all sorts of ways that I don't really talk about publicly, but there was a big price to pay. Do you know what? Most people, Lee, go through their life and never really discover the thing they really want to do or want to be. I was lucky. I found what I liked. I found what I was good at. I dedicated myself to it completely, but I also had a huge amount of fun along the way.
So you're happy with in your own skin?
Oh, absolutely. I did what I believed in.
Nigel Farage.
Thank you.
Cheers.